This is CBC Here and Now.
For 70 years, nurses at the Grace Hospital provided love and care. Now the nursing residence is nothing but a ramshackle ruin. Critics say it shows anything but love to leave it this way. Tonight on Here and Now, an in-depth look at this historic eyesore.
Physically, he's no longer here. The work is ongoing, the influence is ongoing.
Well, he died this weekend in a tragic car accident. Now, people in central Newfoundland are remembering a Pentecostal pastor who continually gave to his community.
Well, that area of low pressure offshore continues to spin and bring some rain and unsettled conditions for parts of the island, as well as some snow for Labrador. We'll get into those details coming up.
Thanks, Ashley. Welcome to Here and Now. I'm Carolyn Stokes. As you saw, my co-host is out in the field tonight. We'll check back with Anthony in just a few moments. But first, we start with a look at the latest COVID cases in the province. There are 15 new cases of COVID-19 today, bringing the total number of active cases to 77. And we haven't had this many Newfoundlanders and Labradorians test positive in a single day since February's cluster at Mount Pearl Senior High. So here's how it all breaks down. There are 6 cases in the Eastern Health region, all related to travel in Canada. 4 new cases in Central. 3 of those are tied to travel. 1 is a close contact. There are 5 new cases in the Western region. 4 are travel related. The other is a close contact of another case. Now tonight, passengers on several flights are being told to get tested. So if you traveled on Air Canada's flight 678 from Montreal to St. John's on Friday or Saturday, you should be screened. WestJet flight 3422 from Halifax to St. John's on Friday. Also, Air Canada flight 7542 from Toronto to Deer Lake. If you took that flight on Friday or Saturday, you should arrange for testing. Also, anyone who traveled on Sunday's Air Canada flight 8016 from Montreal to St. John's should be tested. Well, staying with COVID testing, Western Health wants students and staff of Bélanger Memorial in Doyles to get tested for COVID-19. A presumptive positive case has been linked to the school on the southwest coast. Public Health wants to determine whether there's transmission in that school, so even those without symptoms should get tested. There's a temporary drive-through set up today and tomorrow at St. Anne's Centre in the Codroy Valley. People can book appointments online or by calling 811. Well, some fully vaccinated Canadians living south of the border are wondering when they'll be able to visit home without having to stay at an expensive quarantine hotel and when their vaccination records will be recognized. Here Now's Heather Gillis reports.
Erica and Andrew Quinlan grew up in Newfoundland but moved to Texas a decade ago. Since then, they've had a steady trickle of family and friends visit every few months, especially after their 3 children were born. But the pandemic border closures put a stop to that.
We have never, ever, ever been by ourselves this long.
Yeah, without
support, help.
The couple are fully vaccinated and homesick, longing to be with their parents. Erica last saw her dad in February 2020.
You get other people who are doing rotational work, other stuff, who get to go to Newfoundland all the time, who bring COVID to Newfoundland, and I can't get there. And it's very frustrating.
They also want to see their parents visit the U.S., where they say vaccines are abundant, so they can get their second shot quickly instead of waiting 4 months in between jabs.
If they were to come here, they would get their vaccine, immediately, right? You could get the single shot an hour after you landed on the airplane.
And if they came and got the vaccine, would the Canadian government even recognize that that was their second shot?
They're also wondering when the Canadian government will end stays in mandatory quarantine hotels for people fully immunized.
Or even if my parents could just get here and not have to do the $2,000 or $3,000 on the way back
The family believes a vaccine passport, allowing the vaccinated to travel, would be an incentive for most people to get immunized. And pressure is mounting from some U.S. politicians like Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, who's asked President Biden for a plan and health benchmarks on reopening the Canadian-U.S. border. But a spokesperson for Federal Health Minister Patty Hajdu was non-committal about changes and closed the door on the Quinlan's hopes. In a statement saying, "We've been clear for over a year now. Now is not the time to travel." The spokesperson for the federal government says Canada has some of the strictest border measures in the world and that they've been adding layers of protection since March 20 to determine the best path forward. Heather Gillis, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, time now to check in with my co-host. Tonight, Anthony is outside an abandoned building. Some say it's the disgrace of a St. John's neighborhood. It's in a prime location, so why is this derelict building still standing? Anthony, what more can you tell us about it?
Well, the old nurses' residence here in St. John's off La Marchant Road, it's been here for a long time. People drive by it every day. Many people asking, why is it still there? So that's what we're looking at tonight. And I think, Carolyn, to get the best sense of the scope of what we're dealing with here, you need to take a look at some drone footage to really get a sense of it. So let's do that. You notice there's like a gate there and there's very easy access to it. We just saw a few teenagers actually who were here. They just left the premises. And as you sort of go up the sides of the building, you get a sense, all the windows are broken. It's a wide building and it's right there occupying a fair bit of space as you go across with the busted windows and lots of graffiti. Every now and then you'll see a bird fly in or out of a window, so there's nobody in there. But it's as you get to the top, you can sort of see the potential this place could have as we sort of take a look at another side of the building there. As you turn around that building and you sort of see that it really is visible from various vantage points. But as you head back up to that building and get a sense and think about, okay, what if there was an apartment or a condo, an office building or some other kind of housing? There is an incredible view up there. You take a look at the Southside Hills as we turn around, and not only that, but look at all of the land that you can see at the base of the photos there, the visuals. There's a lot of land right around here, and this is in prime real estate, so close to the downtown area. But as we turn towards the harbor, this is where you've got to think developers and real estate agents would be absolutely drooling. I mean, there is a $1 million view to be had from the top of this structure as we actually get a look at that side of St. John's. I mean, just a fantastic view of the city of St. John's that you can see at the top of that. And so the question that we're really asking tonight on Here and Now is, why hasn't anything been done with this space, and why is that thing still standing? So stay tuned.
Well, as you can see out there, gray clouds have moved in. We're seeing some showers for parts of the metro area as well right now. Mostly sunny, though, this afternoon. At least we did see some sunshine earlier this afternoon. That area of low pressure still sitting offshore, bringing some showers for parts of the island as well as Labrador. We're seeing some snow in the mix, and that will generally be the story as we head through the night tonight and into the first half, or at least through most of tomorrow. That area of low pressure is going to stick with us, in fact, for most of the week. Taking a look at the temperatures, though, warmed up beautifully, 10 to 12 degrees across eastern areas. A little bit cooler along the northeast coast into the single digits. 9 degrees in Corner Brook earlier today, 5 in Happy Valley, Goose Bay, and still sitting between 2 to 4 degrees for coastal areas. The other thing you noted today, if you stepped outside, was it was a little bit breezy, 40 to 60 kilometer per hour wind gusts for most of us across the province. And as we head through the night tonight, those winds are actually going to ease. We're going to see them go down to about 10 to 20 kilometers per hour for the most part as we head through the overnight. A little bit of more in the exposed areas. And then tomorrow, things are going to stay between 20 to 40 kilometers per hour. But depending on the way that wind is blowing, it's going to see some cooler or warmer temperatures. But I'll get into all of those details when I come back.
Thanks, Ashley. Well, a fixture of the faith community in central Newfoundland is being remembered tonight. Pastor Ralph Benson died suddenly on Sunday in a car accident on the Trans-Canada Highway. His contributions reached far into the community. Here Now's Garrett Berry reports.
On the front door of his church, a sign of Pastor Ralph Benson's vision, a heart for people.
And he wanted to make clear that his ministry extended well beyond his own congregation.
Inside that massive church building, there's more than preaching. There's a furniture bank, a volleyball camp, meeting space, all open to the public.
It was very clear to him what his role was and what his mission was, as a leader in a community like this, and it was certainly to enrich the community and provide support to those that were falling through the cracks.
Under Pastor Benson's leadership, the church converted some old property into 18 affordable housing units and also took over 2 transitional housing units.
Pastor Benson wanted to make sure that ours was a community where there is someone to support you when you need it the most.
Benson was a pastor for more than 40 years, and for the last 10, he was a fixture on the Heart Matters show.
18, the Lord is close to the brokenhearted,
sharing messages of faith across the province.
And although, his work here is done, but I think his legacy and his work lives on, and his influence will continue to be here for a long, long time.
Benson died Sunday. He was the victim of a car crash near Gander. He was 65 years old. Benson had 3 children and grandchildren. In an online note, his son Adam said the tributes pouring in have been amazing. He wrote, "I knew my dad had an effect on people's lives. He was a minister for 40-plus years. Just the magnitude of it, I don't think he even knew. I hope now he is able to see and understand his legacy." Garrett Berry, CBC News, Gander.
Well, in other news tonight, the Deer Lake Airport received some federal money today to resurface its runway. It will cost $6 million to resurface the 6,000 feet of runway. Half of that will be covered by federal funding. The airport will cover the other half. The work will happen overnight during the summer months. Some airlines will have to reschedule flight times. Today's announcement took place in the empty international arrivals section of the airport. Deer Lake Airport hopes to access some of the $205 million set aside for the Regional Air Transportation Fund, which would help offset the airport's major losses during the COVID crisis.
We're anxiously awaiting that announcement around, what kind of funding we'll receive there from the Government of Canada. It's been, 14, 15 months into this pandemic, and we certainly have been hit hard by it, and continuing our operations, with deficit year after year after year. So we're projecting that it'll be, probably 5 to 6 years before we actually return to 2019 levels. We definitely need the support.
Well, last night we told you how some flights to the north coast of Labrador have resumed after nearly 2 weeks of a weather delay, but we used the wrong photo in the graphic. We showed you a picture of an Air Labrador plane. Of course, Air Labrador is no longer in service. The airline we should have shown you is this one from Air Borealis. Well, now to the West Coast. City officials unveiled a new colorful Brook sign today. Each letter on the West Street sign displays different symbols that represent the area, like the pulp and paper mill whistle, the outdoor adventure lifestyle, and the Indigenous heritage in the area. The $55,000 sign was designed locally. City staff hope it attracts tourists this season, and everyone is encouraged to take a Brook sign selfie.
And we try to showcase as much as we could of the Brook area as possible, and it makes a difference when people come back home. Like my grandfather, who's 90 years old, can come down here and look at these letters and tell me stories, and myself at 40 can tell stories. So when people come back to Newfoundland to visit their home, they're able to bring their children or just relate themselves to what's on these letters. And I think that it'll be a great piece on social media of people posting their past and present.
Well, the Children's Hospital and a community center in St. John's received donations today. The Janeway Hospital got $500 from a local nonprofit charity, and the McMorrin Community Center got that much in food. The Al Huda Islamic Center raised the money in 1 week. It asked members what they could do for their community to celebrate the end of Ramadan. Those members wanted to help places that had helped them before.
We are in the month of Ramadan, so as part of our social responsibility in the month, we have to care for the needy, we have to feed the needy, we have to, no matter how small you can do to help the needy in the community. It doesn't have to be another Muslim, or it has to be the community as a whole. At the end of the day, you are part of the community. So if the community grows, you grow. You are part, you are in it. So whatever you can do to help it grow, you do it.
Ramadan is a sharing month. It's a giving month. We've been fasting for complete 29 days or 30 days. Therefore, we really have the feeling of hunger that if you don't have, then how about those less privileged people, those who are poor, indigent in the society? How could they feel? The Almighty Allah uses this month of Ramadan, to establish a kind of a justice system within the Muslims. Either rich or poor, aged or youth, is a must for you to fast in the month of Ramadan. That means there is an equal leverage on all. And then if that is being established, I think it's also among the good gesture to let that sense of justice be extended to the immediate community that we find ourselves.
We are all part of this community, and we have children. We believe in family and supporting the kids. So this community has really given a lot to our kids, and we feel this is a way of giving back to that society.
It all comes from away. We all are Africans. We're born and raised overseas, and then for different reasons, we found ourselves here in Newfoundland. So with Al Huda Islamic Center, one thing we try to create is to bring home far away from home, so that we would have our members be welcomed here in St. John's. We would also give them an incentive to relocate and come be with us here in St. John's. And then also understanding that family and community mean a lot to both our culture and the culture here in Canada. We also want to have positive engagement with the community, the host community here, so that at the end of the day, we all would have a progressive and healthy relationship.
It doesn't take much to kind of flip that switch and for things to get out of control.
A doctor from this province is in the thick of things in Nova Scotia as the healthcare system grapples with a massive COVID-19 outbreak. We'll hear from Dr. John Jador coming up after Ashley's forecast.
Well, taking a look live outside right now. A little bit of cloud cover moved in, some showers as well. We'll talk about what's going to be happening over the next 24 hours coming up.
Welcome back to Here and Now. Okay, so one more try to get this right. They do say third time's a charm, right? So this is the correct photo of Air Borealis, the airline that now is resumed flights to the North Coast. In our attempt to correct the wrong photo a few minutes ago, we again showed you the wrong photo. So we do apologize, and we want to clarify that Air Borealis is the airline flying to Labrador's North Coast.
Well, it was a pretty nice day today, certainly in the east. We saw those warm temperatures, some sunshine as well, and then sitting towards, or going towards the west coast rather, a little bit cooler certainly this afternoon. Those temperatures have dropped now down to 6 degrees for most of the west coast, as well as Labrador. We're looking at temperatures anywhere from 2 to 6 across the board, and we do have a number of showers making their way across the central areas. Looks like they've dissipated now, but we do have some showers still working their way across the Avalon. That's generally going to be the story as we head through the overnight tonight, as that area of low pressure continues to sit offshore and spin around some unsettled conditions. Certainly going to see unsettled across Labrador. Now near the coast, this should mainly fall as rain, but mixed with some snow at times. In those higher elevations and further inland for coastal Labrador, you're going to see some snow as we head through the overnight tonight. Looks like we could see anywhere from 2 to 5 centimeters of snow, and again, it'll be fairly wet when it does fall tonight. As far as the island goes, we're looking at the potential for some showers sticking around for the northeast coast. For the northern peninsula, again in that higher elevation, and further inland, you're going to see some snow as well tonight, potentially upwards of 2 centimeters. Not a whole lot to speak of, but that risk is certainly still there as that area of low pressure starts to get closer to the province as we head through the morning hours. Taking a look at the temperatures tonight, anywhere from 1 to 4 degrees. Those winds that we've been seeing today in the east will ease as we head through the overnight, and then temperatures across Labrador hovering just near a degree below or a couple of degrees above as we head through tonight. Nain, you'll see either some flurries, really northern coastal areas, you'll either see flurries or freezing drizzle, and your winds will ease as well. Now looking at tomorrow's forecast, pretty much a carbon copy of today. However, the day will start nice. We'll see some sunshine for the beginning of the morning for the south coast as well as eastern Newfoundland. But those clouds will move in, and we'll see that risk of showers pretty much across the board. Staying generally cloudy through central Newfoundland as well as the west coast, and then exactly the same forecast for tomorrow for you across Labrador, with either flurries or freezing drizzle for northern portions, and then that rain mixed with snow changing over to rain for coastal areas in the afternoon as those temperatures bump up again. But again, further inland and in those higher elevations, you'll see probably another 2 to 5 centimeters of snow for the afternoon. Taking a look at the temperatures tomorrow, anywhere from more than likely going to see the double digits again for the metro area, 11 tomorrow. And then the further away we get from that, 8, 9 degrees through the afternoon. And again, we'll see that increasing cloud through the day. For central Newfoundland, staying generally cloudy, 5 to 9 degrees for you. And then as we head towards the west coast, unfortunately, those mid-single digit temperatures will continue. So 5 to 6 degrees is the daytime highs. Not much different for northern portions of, or the northern peninsula rather, 4 to 5 degrees as we head into southeastern portions of Labrador. And then towards central Labrador, you're looking at temperatures around 6 degrees. So your forecast hasn't changed much either, and really won't over the next couple of days. We're not going to see too much relief from that, just because that area of low pressure is going to continue to sit offshore and bring these unsettled conditions. And then for Labrador City, 5 degrees tomorrow. Winds not too bad, 10 to 15 kilometers per hour, so not really much to speak of. But I will get into the details on the long-range forecast when I come back.
Well, like much of the country, our maritime neighbor is in the throes of the third wave of the pandemic. Today, Nova Scotia reported 118 new cases of COVID, bringing the total number of active cases to almost 1,600. The entire province is in lockdown, and even travel to the province has been banned for people who are non-essential workers and non-residents. So the timing wasn't great for St. John's neurology resident John Jador, who traveled to Halifax for work just as the caseloads started to spike. He joins us now from Halifax. Thanks so much for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So first of all, as I said, not great timing for you. How did you end up in Halifax right now?
So currently, as you mentioned, I'm an adult neurology resident, getting close to the end of my training, and I have an interest in epilepsy and helping serve the epilepsy population in Newfoundland and Labrador. So initially, I came down here to work with some of the epileptologists and learn from them, and potentially look at a possible training program under them to become an epileptologist myself.
How soon after you arrived did the landscape start to change in Nova Scotia in terms of caseloads? Did you arrive just as the COVID spike started?
Yeah, it was a couple of days before I came down here that the numbers started to climb, and they actually started implementing the lockdown procedures the day before I flew down here. So I actually came down right in the thick of it, and as when I got here and as the days went on, the numbers continued to kind of grow from there. So they were already everything was kind of ramping up already by that point.
And what was going through your mind at the time as you were watching all of these changes happening and just things getting worse and worse?
It was tough, to see it kind of happen, but ultimately, this is the kind of thing that's going on across Canada, right? At home in Newfoundland and Labrador, we've been incredibly lucky that the cases that we have can be traced to travel or close contacts to travel. But in Nova Scotia, just like other provinces, it doesn't take much to kind of flip that switch and for things to get out of control. So in a state of a pandemic, these things aren't something you wouldn't expect, but they're things you hope wouldn't happen. But I know that the personality and the culture of the people here in Nova Scotia are similar to home, and I think that that bodes out with how they respond to lockdowns like this. People listen to public health officials and take these things seriously, which kind of gave me a little bit more optimism coming here as opposed to going to a different province.
So you're working in the hospital. We can see it looks like you're in an examining room right now. Can you tell us what it's been like working in the hospital as the number of COVID cases keeps growing?
The hospitalizations and ICU numbers here are higher than they were as compared to back home when we were kind of at our peak of our second or third wave. So it's a little bit more, I guess, not the people aren't so much on edge, but we're just a bit more careful, I think, here right now as compared to before. So it's really just trying to reduce the amount of necessary patient contact so they're not exposed to other people in the hospital, and of course we're not allowing potential people infected to move around the community as well.
And how much longer will you be in Halifax for work?
I'll be here till the end of May.
Well, John Jador, we're happy you'll be bringing your skills back to this province. Good luck there, and thanks so much for speaking with me today.
My pleasure.
The old abandoned nurses' residence at the former Grace Hospital is visible from many parts of the city. So why hasn't it been knocked down and somebody take advantage of its prime location? Coming up, an in-depth look at this eyesore. Was started here and now right next to the old residence of the Grace Hospital that you can see behind me now in Shea Heights. It's kind of an example of the fact you can see that old, decaying, decrepit building from many points in the city of St. John's. But it's important to remember that what it looks like today doesn't represent what a positive place it once was. Nurses' residence is a towering relic left over from the Grace Hospital. The Salvation Army opened the Grace in 1923. It was a maternity hospital with 22 beds for unwed mothers. The hospital trained and educated maternity nurses to become midwives for so-called fallen women. There was no equivalent for men, no fallen fathers. 6 years later, by 1929, it had 100 beds. Mary Southcott, a famous Newfoundland nurse, was instrumental in starting a second nursing school here, and through the years, several extensions were added. By 1954, the hospital had expanded to 200 beds. By the 1960s, a new nursing school was built, and so was the nursing residence, which still stands today. The Grace provided care for 70 years until it closed in 2000. The growing Health Sciences Centre made the Grace obsolete, and in 2008, the Grace was demolished. Most of the remaining buildings, except for the nursing residence, were torn down in 2015. Like other dilapidated buildings, it was transferred from the health department to transportation and public infrastructure. So the fundamental question we're asking tonight on Here and Now, why is that building still standing? This is Dr. Randy Follett, and this is his place of business. He's a chiropractor here in St. John's, and he's leaving through the back door of his business. And from the back door, this is his backyard. Randy, what are the issues living next to this mess?
Hi Anthony, nice to talk with you about this today, and it truly is a mess. You know, we're a healthcare clinic, but certainly we're still a business in the city of St. John's, and you know, every time I come out the back door and park my car in the back lot here, I have to look at this mess back there, and it really is an eyesore. In the community here, I talk to so many people about, they ask me, they say, what is up with that building? Like, what building is it, and who owns it, and why is it in such a terrible shape? And over time, we're really tired of looking at it, and I know the community is tired of looking at it too. And
it's been here for a while, right? In this state, and it's, you know, it's not as if it's getting any better.
Yeah, I've been at this location now, Le Marchant Road, for 11 years. I've been in the city for over 20 years, and the 11 years that I've been here, it's been like this, with the broken glass and the curtains flailing out through the windows and pigeons filling it up over there, and you can see kids running through the hallways up there sometimes through the window. And over the years, I've had to call the police because there's been smoke coming out from you know, teenagers setting fires in the upper floors up in there, and it is a simple disaster in this community.
And even some people in City Hall admit that this is an embarrassment to the city. Do you have any idea why this thing is still there? Either why it hasn't been demolished or turned into something else?
That's a really good question, and a few years back I started asking those questions because so many people were asking me, Randy, what's the plan with this building? So I started asking some questions, and it just seems to fall on deaf ears. I'm wondering, whose accountability is it? I know if my building was left in this state for so many years, the city, you know, they would make me
Somebody would come
accountable.
after you, right?
Absolutely, they'd be after me to clean it up or to tear it down. And so I'm asking the same question, who's going to clean it up or who's going to tear it down?
You might actually, in that situation, you might actually be fined.
Yeah, absolutely, I'm sure I would be.
Or taken to court.
So, you know, the building that I have here is in good shape, and we take great pride in it. And it's really a shame that, you know, the buildings next door to me as well, the owners take pride in that as well. They take care of the outside of their property, and they take care of the pavement and their lot. And when we look back there, this is in such a terrible state. You know, I don't think it's good enough, and this community deserves better than this.
I'm also thinking, Randy, what the mystery to me is, I look at this location and what the view is like from up there, or must be like. Signal Hill's right behind us, looking towards the Narrows, and this huge lot. I mean, real estate agents must just be drooling over the possibility of having some kind of development or access here.
What an opportunity, really. What an opportunity to, you know, get rid of this eyesore and put in a beautiful condo complex or an apartment community or some type of development that looks good in this area. I mean, it flabbergasts me that the city would let this stay here for so long. And I know the provincial government has ownership of the land now and the building, and I have a really difficult time understanding why it's allowed and permitted to stand here so many years in such bad shape.
You know, the original complex in the old Grace, the Salvation Army built that back in the 20s, and it's been developed in the 60s. You know, is there something underground that we don't know about? Because it just seems to me, location, 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 that this would have been developed if it could have been. So I'm wondering if there's something that we don't really know.
And it could be. I know over the years there's been some businesses here that I've heard third hand. There's maybe some products put into the soil here. I don't know. I'm not a geologist certainly, but the fact that it hasn't been developed yet makes me wonder why it hasn't been developed yet. If there's any developer out there listening, look at this site. It's beautiful. The view of Southside Hills and the harbour from here is absolutely fantastic. What an opportunity to develop this into something that could be enriching this area.
So last question for you. If you could have a direct conversation with the department and the minister provincially responsible for this, what would you say? Because we've seen other buildings, the old Janeway, R.J. Sampson, they've been, you know,
they've been flattened, sure.
I mean, if we don't take it down, the province, us, the people, Mother Nature is going to take this down eventually.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what advice, or what would you have to say?
I would say, if I had a conversation with someone in the government, is what is up with this double standard? If it was my building, I'd be told I have to take it down years ago. So my question is, when are you going to take it down? It's not a question of if anymore. The building has to come down. We have to do what's right for this area. The building must come down.
Randy, good to talk to you, and I hope we get to talk again.
Thanks, Anthony. Pleasure.
Now, our province has been through 10 premiers in the 21 years since the Grace was demolished. Coming up after the break, we'll speak with the minister who's responsible for abandoned buildings in our province.
Thanks, Anthony. Well, to Nova Scotia now, where a Halifax woman is calling for more protections to RRSPs. After her husband's sudden death, she and her teenage daughter faced losing much of the family's savings. The CBC's Emma Davey reports.
In August of 2018, Diane Taylor's husband, Tim Taylor, wasn't feeling well. The 50-year-old went to the emergency room and left with a diagnosis of stomach cancer. It had spread to his lungs. It was a devastating shock for their family. 3 weeks later, he died. In the midst of her own grief, Taylor was also trying to support her then 13-year-old daughter. She and Tim had created their wills years ago, and it was simple. Everything would be left to the other if one of them died. Little did she know, they were in for another shock.
Just when you feel like you have nothing left, I had to deal with a beneficiary issue. And I am doing this because I do not want anyone to go through what I went through. No one should have to.
What Taylor learned was that the beneficiary listed on her husband's RRSP was not her. It was his mother. Taylor thinks dating back to when he first opened the account before they were married. His will, it turned out, did not override the listed beneficiary. Not only was Taylor going to lose the bulk of their savings, about $685,000, she was also faced with having to pay the taxes.
There's definitely a gap in law. Something like this should never be able to happen.
Lawyers say this situation isn't unique to Taylor's family. It has happened to others.
Life changes, and so if you do a life insurance policy for your first daughter when she's your only child, and then you have 3 other children and you forget that you've done that, it can have unhappy results that you didn't plan or didn't intend at the time.
For similar retirement savings like pensions, protections already exist. Derek Gerard is a consulting actuary in Halifax. He was also a friend of Tim's.
When people are in a marriage or a relationship and they're partners, I mean, those assets are shared retirement assets. They're building a life together, and the assets are shared. And at the time of death, for one spouse to be able to designate a huge chunk of their estate to somebody outside of the marriage, that would be pretty inconsistent with the rest of the way we treat marriage and partnerships.
But for Gerard, it goes beyond just looking after the spouse.
Anybody that passed away, your final thought would be, I hope my family's okay, right? I hope my kids are okay. Like, I want them to be taken care of, and anything we can do to help protect that in the future, I think would be, pretty important, that we could all get behind that.
Taylor's case was settled out of court, but she wants to see protections in place to make sure nothing similar happens to other families.
So the most important thing you can do is check your beneficiaries. It's the only thing you can do.
Emma Davey, CBC News, Halifax.
Well, so far this evening, we've considered the history of the Grace Hospital and the nurses' residence. We've heard from at least one neighbor who we spoke to, and we showed you one of them, but there were several who were concerned about the safety issues. And we've asked questions about the possible value of the land and what, if any, projects might be possible to put there. Now, the City of St. John's hands, they are tied. This is a provincial matter, and the minister responsible is Elvis Lovelace. Mr. Lovelace, why is that Grace nurse residence still standing? Is there an environmental concern, asbestos or soil contamination? I mean, it's been a long time.
Yeah, there is, and the current building that's there, the old nursing unit, we'll call it for conversation piece. There was an hazardous assessment done, and there's asbestos, yes, in the materials of that building, and but I'm sure in your years of reporting and researching that asbestos is fine until you disturb it.
Yeah, it can be dealt with.
Yeah, so it's I guess it's a concern, and I go back to looking at the parcel of land. If you're interested in buying it, then your interest is maybe not demolishing that building. So I guess we're looking at it from a point of, okay, do we sell it? And it would be within the cost of that offer that you would demolish the building, or do we demolish it, then put it on the market? To demolish it, there's a cost, and there's figures around a couple of $1 million, and right now I don't have a couple $1 million to demolish it, but it's important that we move on this, and because it is a prime piece of land in a good part of the city. And so, there's a lot of options on the table that we're looking at right now.
Well, I guess you mentioned your real estate. I mean, location.
Right.
I mean, the view from the top of that towards the Narrows, and that location so close to downtown.
Right.
To me, it poses the question: why hasn't something happened even before your government? Like, what, I mean, that location was great during the height of the oil boom.
Right.
Nothing happened.
Right.
Here we are. It's not the height of the oil boom. Nothing's happening. I mean, at some point, you don't find it almost embarrassing that thing's still there?
I wouldn't call it I'm not embarrassed, but I understand your point, because I kind of asked the same question as, well, like, why hasn't it been dealt with? Because of location. So, but right now I'm in the position to ask these questions and to kind of, I guess, get the ball rolling a little faster than what it was, and that's no reflection on any former administrations or any former ministers. I'm here now and to deal with it, and I want to deal with it. I don't want to see it sitting there. I believe there's benefits for somebody who's going to purchase it. There's benefits for the taxpayers of the city, and there's benefits for the taxpayers of Newfoundland and Labrador that I'm responsible for.
Obviously, you're a new minister, and I want to be fair to you.
Yes.
Any timeline to when you might be looking at discussing things? Obviously, there needs to be some business secrecy. People want, no one wants to give away what they're planning on investing, all that kind of thing. Any timeline on, how quickly you'd like to see something done with this?
I don't want to put a timeline on it, because if I give a timeline and I can't meet it, then that becomes another story. And I don't think that's fair to myself. I don't think that's fair to the staff, and I don't think that's fair to the taxpayers of Newfoundland and Labrador. But I will say that I want to deal with it, not just to talk about it, because it's an issue that's been around for a long, long time. I think the time is now for action, and what that will be, I don't know at this point, but we're looking at all options to bring the best return for Newfoundlanders and Labradorians.
So hopefully in the near future we'll have some news about what's going to happen behind me in that hospital, that old nurses' residence, from Elvis Lovelace. Now, I should point out also there are some people who believe that it might make for some affordable housing as a possibility in that project. So there will be a big debate if and when that thing ever comes down. I should mention on Twitter today a lot of conversation about the story that we've been working on. If you live in a part of Newfoundland and Labrador that has an old dilapidated building that you would like us to look into, just take a look at the bottom of your screen. You see my email there. Send me a note at Anthony Germain. It should be at anthony.germain@cbc.ca.
Turning now to national news, a second flight carrying federal aid is on its way to India to help with COVID-19 cases there. The flight is carrying 300 ventilators from the federal stockpile. There are also kits to convert power outlets to the right wattage. The second plane load left from the forces base in Trenton, Ontario earlier today. The first flight, which arrived in India on the weekend, had 50 ventilators and a supply of remdesivir, a drug used to help treat severe COVID cases. Well, the Queen carried out her first major royal duty today since the death of her husband, the Duke of Edinburgh, last month. She delivered a speech at the state opening of Parliament.
My Lords and members of the House of Commons, my government's priority is to deliver a national recovery from the pandemic that makes the United Kingdom stronger, healthier and more prosperous than before. To achieve this, my government will level up opportunities across all parts of the United Kingdom, supporting jobs, businesses and economic growth.
Well, the speech largely focused on the UK's pandemic recovery. The event is usually known for its pomp and pageantry, but had to be scaled back down due to COVID-19. Prime Minister Boris Johnson was one of 108 people allowed to attend the event in person. Prince Charles, his wife Camilla, and the opposition leader were also in attendance. welcome back. So this it's only Tuesday right now, but this forecast is going to look ahead kind of to the weekend, see how things are going to shape up later in the week.
Yeah, we are. Unfortunately, the area of low pressure that I've been talking about the last couple of days is going to stick around. So let's take a look at the future tracker just to show you what's going to happen when with that area of low pressure. It's going to spin and pull off a little bit as we head through the day on Thursday, but that still means things are going to stay unsettled for coastal areas of Labrador as well as the northeast coast for the island. The potential for showers will stick around. We're going to see a little bit of break in the clouds for the southern area as well as parts of central through the day on Thursday. But overall, that will pull that cloud with it by the time Friday moves around, or moves in rather, through the morning hours anyway. And then we'll see the snow again continue, at least the potential for some snow and rain for coastal areas of Labrador. And then we should see some clearing skies at some point on the first half of Friday, and then we'll see that potential for showers again through the afternoon for the island, and that will generally continue as we head into Saturday as well, although that area of low pressure is going to move off, so it's going to pull that chance of showers, at least the persistent showers, with it through the afternoon. Taking a look at the temperatures on Thursday, another double-digit day it looks like for the metro area. 10 degrees I have for St. John's, 5 to 8 degrees for the rest of the island, and then those temperatures not really moving much across Labrador. 3 to 5 degrees will be your afternoon high on Thursday. And then similar forecast for Friday, maybe a degree or two warmer, and then we're going to start to see some of those double digits for the rest of the portions of central as well as the southern portion of the island as well. 11 degrees in Marystown looks like sunshine for you. Really along the south coast, that's where the best weather will be again. And that's because we'll see all of the action, or at least that rain action, through central and eastern areas. Gonna say goodbye to the snow potential for now for the northern peninsula, but that rain will still stick around. Over the next couple of days, we're looking at those double digits sticking around from Friday through to Saturday, and then by Sunday, looking at about 7 degrees through the afternoon. Saturday, probably going to see some sunshine as well, but overall it will be an unsettled weekend. And then for central, you're looking at an unsettled weekend as well, but a little bit more sunshine, at least some peaks of sun. Double digits for Saturday. By Sunday, we'll drop down to those single digits. And then the opposite is true for western Newfoundland. You'll start to get into some of those double digits. That's because the winds will shift for you. By Sunday, we're looking at a little bit of sunshine and 13 degrees. For eastern Labrador, unsettled right through Saturday. By Sunday, that's when some sunshine should peak out. 8 to 9 degrees by the time we get to the weekend. And then for western Labrador, some sunshine finally on Saturday, but it does look like either showers or flurries for Sunday. Wanted to share this photo, a different kind of shot. This is RDF and a caribou in central. David Brophy shared that one with us. I thought that was a great shot. If you have any weather photos, send them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
I love the animal shots. Thank you, David. And thank you for joining us tonight. Hope you have a great evening.
Good night.